Well, thank you, Jake. I've had the just complete privilege of being on the Bushel team for a little over 9 years at this point. So before Bushel was even a twinkle in anyone's eye when I came onto the team. And it's really been just really fulfilling to work with all of our customers and partners and help you accomplish your business goals through the things that our team is building today. So I get the privilege of introducing our next speaker. So again, part of this buddy seat content, again, it's not just about Bushel and what we're doing, but what's happening in the industry. And it would be remiss to have a conference around agriculture without some kind of tie-in to what's happening in the sustainability space. So I am thrilled to bring onto stage Allison Naview. She's the Carbon Business Development Lead at Bayer, and she was a Bushel teammate. She's an alumni of Bushel, and now Bayer gets to bring her on board and have her lead their carbon business development. So Allison, welcome to the stage.
Hey, Fargo! Good to see you guys. It's really, really exciting to be back. There are a few places that give me this much energy and excitement. There's so many friends in this room, so many stories, and that's one of my favorite parts about coming to town is this opportunity to share and swap stories. And so I want to start by sharing one of my favorite stories. So this is, how many of you know what this is? Raise your hands. So this is a picture of the running of the bulls in Spain. When I was in college, I had the opportunity to go to Spain. And I heard about this crazy event that started out as people trying to get these bulls from the field all the way to the bullfighting ring. And then over time, it just sort of escalated and got really out of control. And people started flying in from all over the world. And they would run with these bulls. And I was like, man, I got to do that. So I go to this little town. And I'm like, I'm just going to watch. So I show up. And there's 2 barricades. And I was like, well, this is no fun. And so then I, happenstance, run into this guy who's from this town, and he's like, well, you should just do it. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, just run with the bulls. And I was like, sir, I don't know anything about this. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. There's only 2 rules in doing this. And so he walks me through this process. He's like, don't worry, they're gonna corral you into this group, and this is what happened. There were all these giant men, and they were talking about their strategies, and we sing this song to the saint, and then all of a sudden they open the corrals, and you get to stand wherever it is that you want to stand, and then you wait for the bulls to start running towards you. And this is where the rules come in. So he goes, don't worry, there's just 2 things you have to know. One is you can't run when you start to hear them, because then you're running from the bulls. You have to wait until you actually see them, and then you can start running. And I was like, well, what's the second rule? And he goes, well, then you just have to run faster than the person behind you. So that is how I feel about sustainability. I think there has been, this topic in general, it's had so much anxiety and momentum, and people are always trying to figure out, is now the time that we really need to start running? Are these signals that we're getting, are these things that we're just hearing, or are we really starting to see the market change? And so that's really what we're spending time talking about this morning. If you didn't get coffee, there's nothing revolutionary about this, so now is your moment. But it's a reminder of how the market has evolved over the last year since I was at Bushel, since I've joined Bayer. And I always start with this because I think it's a really nice reminder. The first thing that you always hear from farmers, and I grew up, I'm a farm kid too, and so the first thing is always like, well, tell me the definition of sustainability. So it's here. Yes, we have been hearing about these things for a really long time. Sustainability is not something new. Those of you guys that are in this industry, you know this. We've had programs. The challenge with something like this very lovely definition of, yeah, we're going to meet the needs of the present without detracting from the future, it is super vague and not that helpful. And so the programs that we've had in the past have all been sort of geared towards, okay, we think consumers care about this, and so it's been a little bit more export focused. And those of you know that there haven't been a lot of premiums or a lot of market, incentive for doing the extra work, right? So that's kind of the background. We've been hearing this for a long time. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Maybe one day we'll get paid. And then these are things that have started to happen, in the last couple of years, where we're starting to get these signals we're hearing about, new programs, new launches, new pilots. And I would really break these down into 2 categories. There's kind of 2 reasons that you might engage in this kind of work. So we'll set one of them aside for the time being. You start to see these labels, things like, this is the carbon footprint of my shoes, or this is, the amount of carbon in my Oatly, or something else. Maybe it's a cracker, or maybe it's whatever. And it's the assumption that the consumer cares enough about that marketing that they're either going to buy more or they're going to pay more. So that's one reason that you might engage in these sort of things, and we're starting to hear about those sort of programs. Oh, there's this idea of value creation. The other thing that is happening, and where we start to see these other announcements of like Pepsi is announcing this pilot, and this person is announcing this pilot, and that person, like everyone gets a pilot, is because there's this idea that there's a cost associated with not just the production of whatever it is that you are making, but also an environmental cost to that. And if we break that down just a little bit, if you were a company and you were going through, okay, what are all the costs associated with my business, you would look at what is material to that. So maybe it's your energy, maybe it's your water, but probably if you're in agriculture, it is all of the things that happen because you are making that product. And that's what these pilots are after. They're saying, oh my gosh, I'm under pressure, must reduce this cost. And so it's a very different mentality, and I think sometimes we miss that a little bit. This isn't about making more money necessarily, it's about defending your turf. So we'll just set that aside. So we've been hearing a lot of these signals, but again, we're just hearing them, like nothing really, we haven't seen any real change happening yet. And then I'll throw this up here because I think this is interesting. I won't go like super in depth, but if you look at this timeline of things over the course of history and how sustainability has evolved, you can see, again, like all of these things have existed. We've had major climate change, treaties that have happened, and it's like government, and then all of a sudden, and think about the timing of 2020, where we're in COVID, people are spending more time outside, they're thinking about the world in which they live, we have major supply chain disruptions, and then all of a sudden we're not just hearing about sustainability from governments who are setting these big lofty goals, it's also private companies that are saying, oh gosh, I might be under attack, let me do something here. And also investors and shareholders saying, yeah, if you don't do something about that, like, we're gonna vote you out. And so you're starting to hear these signals. This is where it gets super interesting. From many places at the same time. And so you're starting to get, like, we're starting to hear more and more hoofbeats, right? Like it's getting closer, something is actually happening. And so this is kind of bringing us to present day is, when we last spoke, when I was last here, we were talking about these USDA Climate-Smart grants. And so there was this kind of wave of momentum that was leading to all this stuff that was going on. And then USDA says, yeah, we'll throw out billions of dollars if you just figure out market what it is that we should be doing. And so they announced these partnerships programs. And then when we last met, we were like, gosh, we wonder what's going to happen with that. And so that is where we're starting from today is, all of this history of like things we've heard, now we're starting to see actually for the first time the impacts of all of this stuff that is taking place. So when we look at kind of what is going on in government, we're seeing a couple of really, really big themes. One is, yes, there's Climate-Smart Commodities programs, so more pilots, more money, more people trying to do stuff. But the one that I think also gets missed is like this isn't just happening at USDA. So there are tax credits through the Department of Treasury. If you like read all this like very long language, that are actually going to be implemented for fuel producers. So this isn't like, let's go to a body and convince them that they need to change legislation. No, these are tax credits that are coming in 2025 that might actually take into account what's happening back at the farm, because those are the key themes that are taking place in all of these programs, whether it's the White House or USDA or the Department of Treasury or in the private sector. It is this deep understanding that one, agriculture has a role to play, two, we have to pay people for doing this stuff, and three, there are very specific practices that we care about and that we're trying to encourage, and those things have not been adopted in wide enough scope. And so with that sort of as the context, what we're starting to see are the really, really nutty like challenges that we have to wrap our hands around. And this is why I came to Bushel. It's why I'm at Bayer. And actually, this doesn't happen often, but it is validating a little bit of a hypothesis that we had when I was here. And it is that farmers need help finding programs. So if you're a farmer and you know all of these crazy things are happening, but you have no idea where to start. And so you have this underlying sense that you have data that someone cares about, you're doing practices that someone cares about, and someone is willing to pay you for that. You just don't know where to start. So there's the farmer component of needing help finding who are those people, where do I play, what does that look like? And then on the other side, you have all of these programs, and this is especially true of USDA. So you have universities running programs, and you have extension running programs, and those people do not know the one-to-one farmer relationship in the way that the existing supply chain does. And so you have someone sitting in an office somewhere that had this brilliant idea about what climate-smart commodities might be, and they have no idea how to find farmers. And so that, I think, is the really interesting challenge that we're starting to actually see be validated. So Bayer, and this is not a Bayer commercial, but I think it is a really, really good example of something that we're starting to see is actually working and proving out a lot of this point. So we launched about a year ago at Bayer a platform called Foreground. And what it was just an opportunity for farmers to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm really interested in something, come find me whenever you find the right thing. And so there's just this big waiting room of 5 million plus acres of growers that are sitting there that are waiting for the right opportunity. Where I think we have missed, or what we have learned in this, on the one hand, we have converted a lot of those growers into what will be, I think, one of our largest announcements of carbon credits that we've had through the Bayer Carbon Program. And we've brought on new partners. So we're doing things like, Purdue, low carbon chicken, how do we tie that through the supply chain? But what has been very, very hard for Bayer, and what has been very, very hard for the industry, and what Bushel knows, and what you guys know as Bushel's customers, is that what you're doing at the grain elevator is the place that matters. That's the unlock. So yes, we can have FMS that has all this data about what farmers are doing and what practices they have, and we can have this display of interest. But until we start to connect that to where the grain actually shows up, I don't think we're going to have long-term meaningful change. So we have short-term incentives right now. We have really great financial mechanisms, whether that's through offset credits or scope 3 reductions or whatever that is. But for me personally, and I heard that there's kind of 3 levels of knowledge. So there's something that you know for sure, there's something that you believe, and then there's something that you think. So this is in the believe category, right? I believe that the long-term lasting change of sustainability is going to come from tying the carbon intensity, from tying a program, from tying practices to the grain actually entering into the system. And oh, by the way, we did that already. So we know how to do this kind of work. Technically, this is possible. This is a project that we did whenever I was here. It was called Project Carbon View. So we were looking at what is the carbon intensity on a field, and we could measure that. We did that. And then we said, all right, well, where are they actually going to? And then we had scale tickets, and it was like, here's this proof that something showed up, and here's the transportation distance, and here's the emissions of that, and oh, by the way, here's a CI score by volume of grain, and that I think is the secret sauce, that no one else has quite figured out a reason or how to do that, and we already did it. We just need a reason to continue that work. We need customers that care about it. We need other people that are starting to recognize that this isn't just something that we're hearing. This is not, oh, sustainability, it's back, and we'll maybe figure that out later. No, it's here, and we're seeing it in real time that this is the problem that has to be solved. And so I'm going to end with this one little, interesting tidbit, which always comes up. So if we're talking about, okay, cool, well, I'm in business development. Why are we doing that then? Who's paying for this? And so this is the slide that I often see. It's that US consumers are going to pay more for these kind of products. And I can't see very well because there's a lot of light kind of shining on you guys, but I'm imagining that some of you are rolling your eyes and you're like, yeah, no, that's not true. And that too is what I believe. So I don't think that this is actually about having more premiums on the bushel. I don't think this is about consumers' willingness to pay more. If we actually dig deeper into Gen Z and what they care about, this is an expectation. And so this is really about defending your market share. I think the first people that figure this out, that start to do this, that invest in creating these sort of opportunities, those are the people that are holding on to the market. But it may not be that they're actually getting a premium that gets passed back. You're just selling more of your grain. This is a license to operate issue. And that is the piece that I don't feel like when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about this transition of programs from carbon markets and carbon credits and all these things that are going on. Yes, there's cool, snazzy stuff, and there are ways that we can maybe make a little bit extra money, but I think this is really about defending the farmer, defending your business, and making sure that we have a world in which we can continue to sell grain into. So I'll tell you the story, like how it ends. So I, was in Spain. This guy convinces me to run, and so I end up, kind of going from this corral. I'm standing in my spot. I have my 2 lessons in my head, and I'm like waiting, and I can hear like all of these like hoofbeats coming towards me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening, it's about to happen. And this man grabs my shirt, and he goes, "You're a woman. What are you doing?" And I turn to him without thinking, and I go, "Sir, now is not the time." And I just took off running. And so that is the moment that I think we are in right now. These things, they're here, they're happening, and if we don't start running, guys, we're gonna get trampled. So, as Jake would say, let's go. Thank you.